Um, but thanks again to everyone for hopping on. I know I haven't been able to be here in person. I think for the last couple of these meetings, whether it's the legislative session or family stuff. But Lance from Association of Idaho Cities.
I'm Daniel from AIC.
Jerry Peterson with Home Energy Services.
Dave Freelove, Idaho Energy Code Circuit Rider.
And then Jerica, you're our first one.
Jerica Stacy, Director of Technical Training at the International Code Council.
Thanks for being on, Jerica. It's good to have you. Tess.
Hey everyone, Tess Studley from the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance.
Hey, Tess and Damon.
Damon Woods with the University of Idaho Integrated Design Lab.
Damon, I was gonna say, I was really hoping for like a nice, beautiful Canada background today for the Zoom call, but just not feeling it.
Yeah, trying to keep it professional, but there's some pretty nice mountains outside, so yeah.
I bet it's good to have you on, Brian.
Brian Imai, I'm the Government Relations Manager for the International Code Council.
It's good to have you, Brian. Hopefully we'll get to see each other in person. I'm just thinking about it. I don't think we've crossed paths yet, but I'm sure we'll see each other at a future event.
I hope so.
Jason?
Hello, Jason Blaze, City of Boise building official.
Thanks for being on, Jason. Jared?
Yeah, Jared Schmidt, representing AIA Idaho.
Thanks for being on, Jared. Kevin? Oh, Kevin, it looks like you're talking, but it's not coming through. We'll give you a quick minute so you can take a look at your audio. Brett?
Yeah, Brett Stoddard, City of Rexburg, building official, and also representing Idaho.
Good to have you on, Brett. Dylan?
Dylan Agnes, Integrated Design Lab.
Thanks for being on, Dylan. Kevin, do you think you got your audio fixed?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Perfect.
Sorry about that. Kevin Rose, I work with Tess at NIA.
Thanks for being on, Kevin. Always appreciate the information you can provide. Sheree?
Sheree Wilhite, Idaho Power.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for introductions. Really appreciate it. And then I hopefully everyone's seen the agenda that was shared with the group via email yesterday. Looks like Greg's popping on. So good to have you, Greg. But Jerica, before I dig into announcements, I just want to make sure, is there anything from your perspective that you wanted to include for announcements? I know there's been times in the past that you've had stuff you or Brian have wanted to share.
I do not have anything right now. Thank you, though.
Okay. Greg, no worries, man. It's good to have you on. We appreciate your time. And Greg, actually, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, just in case the people don't know yet.
Greg Johnson, electrical engineer at Avista.
Thanks for being here, Greg. Really appreciate it. How's the weather in Washington?
It is nice and sunny and warm. I assume it's probably what it looks like outside your window. I mean, so yeah.
Parts of it on fire.
David's got to give us the down news, but
we are too. We got a few going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on, Greg. So real quick, following up on announcements, most of it was included in that email that I've shared with everybody, but Gary did the courtesy of making sure to remind us that there's been changes to the public meeting schedule. So I included that in the email that I sent everybody. But that was just announcing that the meetings that are scheduled for June have been pushed out to July, but they're still having those. Is there anything on that note, Jerry, do you think we should talk about?
A little bit about it.
Okay. So there will be that. David's got an air balance training that he'll be hosting next week. And the link for signing up's on there, and you can circulate that to anyone that would like to participate. And then we'll have the building code board meeting, that kind of the reason that we're having the code collaborative meeting today that we'll be talking about. But I think that's it for announcements. David, do you want to kind of share a recap of trainings? Sure. And
yeah, so the trainings, Jerry and I, we last week and the week before, we did trainings in Haley, Twin Falls, Idaho Falls, and Rexburg. So we had, I want to assume, about 6 at Haley. Or so. We had at Idaho Falls, we had over 30. And then when we did Twin Falls, we had about 10. About 10 at Twin Falls, and then we moved up to Rexburg, and I want to say we had about 6 at Rexburg. So the Idaho Falls was actually a packed room. Everybody's was very interactive. We've been asked to come back. They want us back again. So moving on, I've got the air balance training next week, and then we'll be scheduling training. We'll probably be moving back over to North Idaho, Central Idaho, and then also we want to, at the same trips, we want to try to involve some of the smaller rural communities that we can get into. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But overall, it's been very, very receptive, the in-person trainings we've been doing, and getting a lot of response to it. It's nice.
Yeah. Jerry, is there anything else you wanted to provide on the update on the trainings or?
No. Any questions from you folks on the trainings, concerns, anything like that, comments?
Dave, I'm just curious if folks are having questions about the 2024 review as you're giving the trainings, or is it focused mostly on the current code?
Jared, that's a great question. Jerry's sitting here whispering in my ear right now. He's got comments on that. That we, yes, there's been comments and questions on it that we've been doing on these trainings, but Jerry will address that when he does do his presentation. So, but
okay, great.
Nothing ugly I'm seeing out there. So nothing like that.
So, Jerica, I have a question for you. I know you have access to training materials and stuff, and we had a question that came up over in Rexburg that we could potentially use some technical assistance with. And it comes down to the attic ventilation and the blocking in high seismic areas that appears to interfere with the placement of baffles. And so what I'm looking for is something that clarifies how we're supposed to do the attic ventilation, the soffit portion of it in those high seismic areas, or whether, and the reason it matters is because to use the exception in the code, the 1 to 150 ratio, we have to be able to provide soffit and ridge vent. Otherwise, it takes us back to the, that exception is 1 in 300. If we don't provide soffit, then it takes us back to the 1 in 150, which is going to be problematic in snow and ice areas.
Yeah, if you want to shoot me like a quick email, then I will send it up to get like an official code interpretation for you that then we can give to Brett or whoever else to disseminate that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, if you want to send it to me, Jerry, I can distribute it among the group and Snake River chapter and including Idaho statewide.
Yeah, I'm trying to get an appropriate response so we have something clear.
Okay.
So I don't want it to be Jerry's opinion. So.
Yeah, we'll get a staff interpretation, and if we need to, we can do a small committee interpretation too, which is pretty easy.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, Jerry.
Was there any other, are there any other questions about the trainings that people wanted to bring up? Okay. Yeah, and I'll keep working with David so that way we can hopefully continue to keep an email chain out there to update people on when those trainings are being provided and I will also do my best to add them to the calendar, like the Google Calendar as well, so that it's displayed on the coach training website. So that way we're trying to hit it in multiple locations to make it
Yeah.
easier.
And then at the
So-
same time, like if I email the dates to you and locations and all that, typically I'll make the flyers, update the flyers, but as well, I forward all that over to Ginger at Idaho too, so she can
Perfect.
post it there. She has it so she can post it.
Do we have any commercial trainings coming up?
I do not have any commercial trainings scheduled as of yet.
IDL will be
Okay.
hosting some this fall, but we don't have them on the calendar yet. But we'll have a few, and we'll let you know once we do get those scheduled.
Great. We have a training page on our website. It really is for commercial and industrial. So I'd want to put those on that training. I don't see any reason we shouldn't maybe have a link to the Code Collaborative calendar though too. I'll see if we can get that to happen. So if somebody wants to find a residential training, they can.
Okay.
Thanks, Rita. That'd be great. Perfect. Well, I think that's it for the training items. We could go ahead and just shift the focus to Jerry if you want to talk about the presentation and maybe some comments on that.
Ben, can you pull up that?
Yes.
So while Lance is pulling up the document, I just wanted to give a brief synopsis of where we're at. I apologize for all of the changes. All of that is beyond my control, but just please be patient with what's happening over at Doppel. We have to understand those are all new people. They're trying, but they kind of got the horse in front of the cart, or the cart in front of the horse, excuse me. So they scheduled all those public hearings, and then when the hearings came around, it's like, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about because we don't really have a path forward. And it became obvious that, they needed to have at least some type of a proposal in front of people for them to have an appropriate conversation. And so they pretty much canceled the rest of the public hearings until after the board meeting next Tuesday, the 17th. And on the 17th, let me back up just a step. The other component that was missing was they weren't sure whether they were going to go with the 21, 24. They didn't know how to. They were trying to, do a presentation that bridged all three of the codes together, and that got pretty extensive. And so they had an agreement with ICC to provide the code update information. And then that got rescheduled a couple of times. And so at the last board meeting here in Boise, the building code board reviewed the commercial building code. And then this one next Tuesday, they're going to be reviewing the residential building code. And so those are the two things that they needed in place. So that would be if they want to pursue moving forward with adopting the 2024. There's no discussion on adopting the 2021. If we adopt code, it'll be the 2024. So before we can do all of that, we have to enter into the negotiated rulemaking process. That has a lot of formality to it. And the first thing that has to happen is the governor's office has to sign off on it. So before they can do anything, they have to run it through downtown and get a tentative nod to enter into negotiated rulemaking. I believe that has happened. It definitely will have happened by next Tuesday, and we'll know, what the intent of that is. The other question that downtown had was who was driving it, who's pushing it. And right now, the big push is coming from fire marshal's office and some of the bigger industrial projects going on here in the valley I'm sure there's more going on around the state, but we're kind of in limbo with the codes and how it deals with some of the new emerging technology and electrical, solar storage, EV, that whole line of things, because we don't have the appropriate codes in there as a backstop for inspections and permitting, et cetera. So we kind of have to do something. And I think that's, the obvious thing in the room is we have to do something. And what is the matter that we want to, how do we want to proceed with that? So to spin back around to the energy code, we did not want to get off cycle with the other codes. If we move forward with the building code, both the commercial and residential, we'd like to move forward with the 2024 energy code at the same time. However, there's a list of factors in there that some of them are non-starters, some of them could be debated. The short version of it is that we've pretty much been told that if it adds cost, there better be good justification behind it. And at the same time, we are still in a, less regulation is better environment. And so, we need to be aware that if we are pushing something that it makes sense, it's easy to understand, and we've got the justification to support requiring it. So kind of, based on all of the comments that we've worked on, the presentations over time, we threw the most streamlined version that we could, and that's this document. I would love to send this out to everybody, but it is only a working document. This is just something that says, this is what the language would look like. I'm trying to get past that first step. And so this is what Doppel is using as their presentation. And we can go through a couple of the sections, and they'll start on page 9. So again, this is not, we've written it in the appropriate language or in the appropriate format as requested. But this will be part of my presentation. Yeah, you can see the highlighted yellow parts as you keep going down.
There you go.
So this will be, they've asked me to present at the Building Code Board meeting on the energy and specifically this document. So the whole thing is really hinging on whether or not we have a tentative nod from downtown. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start into this. So the first thing we did is this is just a code change on the title itself. And so we're just, changing it from 2018 to 2024. Scroll down. And then these are sections of the commercial code. I should have said that title change references the commercial provision. These are the sections of the code that are being deleted. And again, this is based on feedback, concerns from various parts of industry. And so the intent was if we remove some of the bigger pain points, can we move this forward? The last line there that's highlighted is the change to the residential. And so again, it's just a title change. And then if you scroll down, go past this next section to the next page, I'll come back to this one. So go past that one.
Okay.
And then these are the pain points in the residential code. And, I can read them. We're not taking them off the table. What we're trying to do is put a document out there that allows us to move forward. And so it doesn't mean that, we can never address these or it can't be part of the conversation, but we're just saying this is, what we're offering to try to get, that tentative nod without getting too much heat back from it. So we have options on the table, and they're one of them is a default, which I don't want to use and I don't want to encourage. So, we have the options that are in front of the board right now is we move forward and we adopt it as presented here, which takes a lot of things out of it. I understand. Happy to address each of those singular items, but it gets the title in there. It gets us moving forward. And there's a lot of other things in the code that are beneficial. And we can make that argument. I can make that argument, whether it's with the board or the legislature, that we need the definitions. We need the changes in the administration part. And so there's a lot of benefit there in addition to these singular items, which have been identified as costly and or, problematic. So we have that option of moving forward with the 2024 as this document is. Again, it doesn't lock anybody out. Somebody may present something different, but this is kind of what I am putting forward. The second option, again, I don't want to offer this to the board, but I just want everybody on the collaborative to be aware of it. And that's just to do what we did with the 2009. And that just means kick it down the road. And we just keep kicking it down the road. It took us almost 10 years to go from the 9 to the 18 statewide. That would not be a total loss. The other option is, that they make a move to just get rid of the energy code, which has brought up, been discussed. We don't want to take that option either. But that's kind of a worst case thing that we don't talk about in the public arena. And then we have another option, and that is something that I think makes a lot of sense, and that is fixing a known issue that we've known about forever, and probably one of the biggest energy saving things that we can do per dollar spent. And that is to change the verbiage around air sealing. It's complicated, it causes a lot of confusion, and it's not the way that it's currently written into the rules. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and we're not really achieving the goal there. And so if we scroll up to that section that we passed, when we, in the last zero-based regulation move, when we took out the blower door testing, we put verbiage in there that referred them back to a chart. And then in reviewing that chart, it really didn't capture everything that we wanted to do. So the way I put this to Doppel and the way I'm putting it to the board is this is unfinished business. This is something that we said we were going to do. And here it is. It's not dependent on the code cycle, but it is something that we need, something with significant savings. There's nothing vague in there. It's very clear, and it was very intentional. And so pushing this forward as a singular item is something that I would like to do, and regardless of what else happens, this is probably one of the biggest things in the newer code that would make a measurable difference. And so this is being pushed as something that we were supposed to do anyway. It's not new. It's not new regulation. And these items came from several sources. When I was working on this, I reviewed the 18, the 21, and the 24, and I sent all those documents out. So those are available. We went over that at the, I believe, the last meeting and highlighted the sections. And then we used data from known sources and known testing and put this into the simplest format that we could come up with. And the intent was to, working with IDL, is to provide a document that goes with this, that through illustrations and or pictures details what this actually means in the shortest format possible. So we're looking at something that's 3 or 4 pages, and then that would be distributed as part of our support for this specific rule change. So I know there's a couple questions. Let me go into one more thing. On this specifically air sealing thing, this has been reviewed. We've talked about it at almost every training I've been involved in. We always leave the door open and ask people, are they following, what's happening? Do they have things that need to change? And without going into too much detail, there's been solid support for this particular piece of it from both the contractors and the building official side of it. And so, again, we're just trying to do something that's straightforward and simple without adding a lot of additional language to the administrative rules that we just went through to reduce. And so this was the easiest way to reduce the word count, keep it simple. It's something that people have been requesting, and it makes them stay focused on, we can't just kick the can down the road. We've got this open thing going on right now that needs to be addressed. And so we can't just not do anything. We've got the fire stuff, we've got the electrical storage, we've got this unfinished bit on the air sealing, and so we're trying to discourage them from just saying, let's wait till next year. It's like, we don't need to. The language is right here. We just need, to see if we can get this piece of it done. And with that, there was a couple of questions, I think, Craig had.
Yeah, I wanted to say excellent approach to get some traction. I really like what you've done, Jerry. So great job. I had a question about what is the Home Builder Association response? I mean, I see that the parts that you offered up of striking appear to be the ones that would cause the most consternation with that group, and wondering if they're okay with the rest of the code with those strucken sections, or have you talked to them?
So I've met with several of their prominent members, and we're kind of all waiting on the same thing. We need that tentative nod from downtown. If we're going to move forward with it, then I have an invite to. I was on the BCA's Governmental Affairs Committee for years when I was working for the state, and they would like me to, come back and, kind of see this thing through and get back on that committee. The people that have looked at this particular list, I shouldn't say I have total agreement, but I have pretty good support from everybody on this approach. I do not have a final vote from them. I don't know that they would tell me one way or the other. They try to keep their membership decisions close to the vest, but that's kind of where we're at in it. But they like the approach.
Hey, Jerry, I have a question. Did you say that these amendments largely came just from speaking with Doppel, or where, can you clarify where they came from? And also, can I see the commercial ones again, please?
Scroll up, yeah. Very good.
So the commercial ones are in part from the Integrated Design Lab.
Okay.
And the comments, from various people in this collaborative. Doppel does not have anybody, and I think I've said this in previous meetings, they don't have anybody that has a desire one way or the other on it. They're simply the part of the mechanism for adopting rules and statutes. They don't have somebody advocating one way or the other on it. They just, take what industry and or the board is trying to move with, and they move with that. So they don't weigh in on any of this other than the formatting itself.
Okay. I was just going to comment, not that I don't mind these amendments actually. They're not the ones that I typically see. So there are a couple on here that I'm surprised we did not recommend amending out. Not an advocate for amending them out, but there's a couple on here that I just would expect to see that I don't see.
Yeah, and just remember what I said earlier. This is a working document. This is just something that we're just trying to get a go ahead nod on. It's not intended to be, exactly what's going to come out the other end. It's just a place to start from.
Yeah. No, I'm just surprised that there are a couple things that a typical jurisdiction has been amending out that are not on this list. So I'm surprised by that. But
Are you talking about TSPR being one of them?
no, I think TSPR is something people like because it's an option. I'm talking about renewable energy and energy monitoring and things that are actually going to cost more. And I'm surprised that in lieu of that, we're amending out the additional efficiency because that is kind of totally up to the designer and you can meet it in a lot of different ways that may not necessarily increase cost. But some of the other items definitely would, in my opinion, increase cost. And they're ones that we typically see amended out if folks are going to amend it. So I'm kind of surprised they're not on this list. But again, I'm not advocating for them to be on the list. I'm just surprised they are not on the list.
My forte is definitely not in the commercial end, so I'm going to defer that conversation to Damon.
Sure. Yeah. So this was, as Jerry said, just kind of a first glance at where some of the heartburn was when we were talking to architects and engineers. And the renewable energy, was that C408?
C406.
No. It's C4015.15.
Okay.
And it's in climate zone 0 through 7. It requires you to have on-site, or if you can't do it on-site, you have to buy off-site.
Yes, and that was one area that folks had said that this might, different members of AIA Idaho, not AIA Idaho as an organization, but just conversations with were saying, yeah, that might cause some additional costs. And I had thought we had captured that with the additional efficiency options, but that was just a misunderstanding on our part that it didn't also capture that. While the additional efficiency options offers that flexibility and that big matrix, which can be great, some of the designers we talked to were just overwhelmed by the matrix approach.
Sure.
And
I can provide some great training on it though, Damon.
I believe you. I think it's awesome. Yeah. But it's also, you kind of have to really know how to, or at least just spend a little while getting familiar with it.
You do, definitely. And I think
at first glance, it looks more overwhelming than it is.
There's a toolkit in the makings from what I've heard at DOE, but we have not seen that yet. And I'm not sure when or where that will come out. But no, just amending out C406 is not going to take care of that renewable energy requirement. And again, I'm not advocating for it to be out. I would love to see it in, but just to make sure that you're aware of that. What I have seen is that a lot of jurisdictions amend out the renewable energy requirement so that, and they leave the additional efficiency in so that if somebody did want to do renewable energy, then they could get credit for it because the C406 has to be over and above what's required already. So they usually, what I've seen, they amend the requirement out, but they allow you to get the credit for it if you do the what would typically be required.
So I don't want to cut that conversation short, but it does kind of show you what we're up against when we have a meeting with, you know, the governor's office or other officials. We don't have the physical time, you know, to go into all these things. And this is what, and I'm not trying to shut you down, please don't misunderstand it, but this is the purpose of the public hearings.
Yeah,
right?
I don't have a problem with these. I was just asking.
Trying to just say, can we move forward with this now at this point in time? Next Tuesday, can we get an approval to move forward? And now we have the rest of the summer to, you know, have the discussions and
fine
tune it, get everybody's stuff in there. And that's really what the board is trying to do. That's the purpose of the hearings. But I just don't, I would like today to, you know, have that nod from the collaborative that this is a good starting point. Let's go ahead and go with this. But because we don't have everything in there or things are subject to change, I don't want to circulate this particular document. Because now we're saying that this is Jerry's amendments, and it's not. It's just a working document that we're trying to run with, to get started with. I think.
Did anybody else have a question?
Erica, what is that section again that you were referring to? C404.15?
C405.15.
Yeah, I mean, if we
Thank you.
put that out there, I would like to.
And then the energy monitoring and the automatic receptacle controls are right before that. They're 12 and 13. Then, and those are ones that I've seen pain points on. Again, I would rather see them left in, but just if folks are reviewing typical pain points, then I would look at those sections.
So the building code board is probably not going to be looking at all of these things. They're counting on us and the industry to sort this out and make them aware of it.
Sure.
So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. You know, we're the specialist. You know, and obviously whatever we do, we're gonna need to assist them, you know, moving forward. So, you know, next Tuesday, we want to try to be as straightforward as we can, knowing that we have, you know, 4 public hearings and 2 or 3 more board meetings before we have to hard write this. So
it may be worthwhile though highlighting these sections that Jerica said, because if we highlight them as potential things for consideration, then it would give us greater reputation. Like we're not trying to sneak something over on people. And so then when it comes to the next, so regardless if they were to accept them or not, you know, I mean, they want to leave them in or they don't want to leave them in, it just means that there's more trust in this group for the next code cycle. And they'll be like, well, these guys were transparent and let us know what potential pain points might be and let us decide. Versus if we don't say anything, they may, you know, and then they get through and no one notices, and then people complain after the fact, said no one told us about them.
no, that won't happen. But this document may have already been submitted, so I don't want to change the wording at this point. We can acknowledge that, you know, and there's other things that people have said on some of the other stuff. So nobody's trying to sneak anything in. Everybody understands this is a working document.
Cool. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks for the feedback, Jerica.
Was there questions on the air sealing? Again, we're really early on in this. The thought process was to keep it as simple as possible. We're trying to keep the word count down. And as this is written, we've added a single page to the rules. So we were able to do quite a bit without extending, getting into creating more. And then in addition to this,
Jerry, I had one question on the air sealing section.
Sure.
And it's related to there's a statement in there about being field verified. Lance, are you able to scroll down to that section in the document? Thank you. Yeah, right there. Yeah. We're at the end of the paragraph. It says applicable to the method of construction and field verified. I'm just curious, and I know you're not making changes right now prior to the board meeting on Tuesday, but is that something that might, to the benefit of jurisdictions, like be better clarified about what that means, or like who's doing the field verification? I'm just curious if that's come up as a question, because I think that in other territories I've heard where it's like, oh, well, it's up for interpretation who's actually doing those kinds of verification, unless it's really specified more clearly.
So what we changed, and I guess I could re-highlight it differently, but what got changed, if you look at that paragraph that starts section R402, the only thing that changed is if you go down to the third line where it says in lieu of. And so all I've done with that whole paragraph is I've transferred the language where it says shall be considered acceptable. And I put in there in lieu of testing when the item's listed below. And so that's the only change that I made to it, was instead of the referencing back to this chart, which was a blend of air sealing, air barrier, and insulation, that we now have a specific list of things that have to be air sealed. So any other language that's in there is existing. I don't know that we've had any trouble with the field verification. It seems duplicative, because we already have the visual inspection there. But if it's not causing a problem, this is just the language that was already existing.
Yeah, and Jerry, isn't there another section that says the jurisdiction can do it or third party can do it? I think we already have that somewhere else, don't we?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that is at. But yeah, so some jurisdictions, kind of depend on the herd rater and stuff to take care of all of this. So we're just saying, these are the rules. This is what needs to be sealed. It does not replace the old chart that was referenced. And so we're not taking anything out that's already there. It just says that, when it comes to air sealing, this is the list. And the intent is to keep it super simple.
Okay, thanks.
And then just in case everyone didn't see, but Jerica, thanks for putting that comment of where we can find that exact provision. So thanks for sharing that with everybody.
Yeah, and just so you know, Jerry, the air leakage section is R4025 now in the 2024. So R4024 would be under fenestration at this point. On E, it should be R4025.
Okay. I will make that change
Got a little renumbered
today. Yeah, and that's all part of the process. Obviously, we have to make sure that, which we've done. This has not went through legislative services and stuff, but this formatting and the you know, the way this whole thing is put together gets reviewed to make sure that all these references are correct. But yeah, we'll give them the right number to start with.
Kevin, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing. And also, while we're basically at this point looking for things that will help advance this document and sort of advance the process, under this item 3, recessed light fixtures shall be sealed to sheetrock. Sheetrock is like a brand name for drywall. So occasionally, folks who create competing products will show up and make that point. So, just to avoid
Noted.
that, yeah, maybe change that when possible. Thanks.
Gotcha. Do you have your 18?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that feedback, Kevin. Is there anything else that you were going to add, by the way, or was that it?
I've got lots of opinions about what I'd like to see here and there, but this is like not the time for that. It sounds like public comment and further stages are the best place to do it. But I'm glad Jerica raised the point that she did earlier. I don't think I have anything further to add.
Did we have a meeting where we all have that kind of discussion and comments and, mark up this document and whatnot? I feel like it'd be very productive.
We've had, I mean,
we've been talking about this for a year and a half.
Yeah, quite a while. So we've solicited all the, comments.
I mean, outside, not public comment, like everyone just on this call, and we do what we're trying to do right now, going back and forth, talking about different sections, what we like, what we don't like.
Yeah, that's been solicited to the group several times going back, as far as, input comments, what you would like to see, that kind of stuff. It's been requested from you.
I don't know, Dave. I think we've mostly been asked to review the PowerPoint a couple of times.
Yeah, like we've all been siloed off to like give our comments and stuff. I'm talking we all get in the same silo and just have at it.
I think and I could be wrong, but I think if I recall, I think Jerry's asked for, send emails, send documents, send anything you would like to see. I know that I at least I recall him asking for anybody's input, not necessarily at the meeting, but if you have things you would like to see, stuff you would like to change, to send him an email, send him the information over, something like that. I know he solicited that.
So I've asked for input every single time I've done a presentation, and to date, I've gotten response from one person. We are putting this, in front of the board next Tuesday. Like the worst thing in the world right now would be for someone to get up in front of the board and say, well, I don't know anything about this. I wasn't asked, or I wasn't considered, knowing that we've had meetings almost monthly since January of 2024. So, I mean, without, and part of that ask specifically this year was knowing that we're coming up to this point in time. And I have put out there repeatedly that if somebody wants something, they need to put it in the appropriate format, and get it in there. And so, this discussion, this part of this right now is part of what, just adds confusion to what we're asking the board to do. And, this is not a win-win for anybody. It never has been. Co-development isn't a win for everybody. It's like what can we all tolerate versus, what's best for everybody. So, I mean, this is what I have at this point. And so, I guess the decision that I'm asking for today is, do you want me to put this in front of the board next week and answer questions, or do you want to say we don't have consensus within the collaborative? That's a decision that has to be made today.
Well, this is Richard. Here's the problem that I have, Jerry, is I've been on, and I've missed a couple of meetings, but I've been on some meetings where you take offense to comments and throw your hands up in the air and say, well, then somebody else runs with it. I've done all this work. And we're not saying that you're not doing the work, but when we try to make suggestions, just like Jerica's suggestions today, you're like, well, it's too late. It's a working document, but it's too late. So I have concerns. I don't think it's ready to go before the board. I think we need to, together as a group, withdraw this and then go through, make the appropriate changes. I think it's better to bring it before the building code board as a draft that doesn't need much modifications from this group versus going there just to meet a timeline it's not ready for. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay,
it's not a personal attack. I'm just throwing it out there.
Just a quick response. Both of those suggestions that Jerica made, if you remember, I said I will take care of that today. So I'm not.
Well, no, because you said on that one for the stuff that she's in favor for to stay in, but most jurisdictions are removing. You're talking about doing that at a later time, not today, because you're saying that it was already sent to the board. So it just for me, it just feels rushed, and I'd like to make it as clean and presented to the board. And because I've presented to the board before on stuff, and you better have your ducks in a row, otherwise they eat you for lunch, as you're aware of. And that's just my 2 cents. Doesn't mean much, but that's my point of view.
So moving forward, so again, this is a document to go to the board, basically something to send to them to start the procedure, to kind of get the consent to move forward with it. So there is opportunity to do change down the road. It's not a problem. The other thing is that, I kind of sit in the shadows. I do a lot of work kind of in the shadows behind Jerry, reviewing stuff, talking to stuff, discussing stuff with Jerry, strategies, stuff like that. Even and again, no personal attack on anybody at all. I try to stay as unbiased as possible. Because, I mean, if you guys decide today, let's not let the board see this document. Let's not send them anything because we're not in consensus. That's okay. I mean, it's either here nor there to me. But I know we've repeatedly asked for the inputs. We've actually backed off one time because, it's frustrating to me, it's frustrating to Jerry. We're kind of sitting at zero at the 11th hour right now. Because this has got to be basically discussed at the board level next Tuesday. And here we are right now, well, we want to make all these changes to this document and get it sent over. There's some lead time that has to happen to that. So I know it sounds like, well, let's just put it on the paper and send it in. It gets tough and it does get frustrating. But we'll do, again, Jerry and I we'll do whatever you guys so choose. So, why don't we just decide, are we going to make these changes now? Are we not going to submit the document? And are we going to submit more stuff? So we'll just get those questions answered now and decide what we would like to do. I think that's the way we should look at moving forward at this moment before we get into all the wrangling on, all the he said, she said, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or anything like that. Let's just decide how we want to move forward right now.
What about as a compromise? What if you just told the board that the recommendations were going to move forward with the 2024, and then the group is still working on consensus on what modifications need to occur, and we'd have to provide a later report to the board on what the specifics are?
They already told us no. The full version of the 2024 unamended will not be considered.
Well, no, I'm not saying that we would do unamended, just saying that we are recommending the 2024 with amendments. It's just we don't have the finalized list of what the amendments would be yet.
So that's what this list is, because they don't want that. They want to know what we want to do.
So you're saying that with or without the consensus of this collaboration, we're just going to move forward with what we have. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, and granted, I haven't made any suggestions, but that's what I'm hearing.
I am your referee / liaison. This is a volunteer position. I don't have a dog in this fight. I offered to, based on my experience and you know the years I put into this, my knowledge of the code and how the process works, I volunteered to act as a liaison. I'm not doing anything outside of this collaborative. If you say no, let me know, and I will inform Doppel that we're not ready to move forward with the energy code.
I think, if I can interrupt, this is Dylan. I think we're trying to let Doppel know that IECC is a guideline. It will be changed. It's intended to be changed depending on our climate, environment, and market. And so that we want to adopt 2024, but we don't have the details on what is applicable for Idaho and what is not applicable for Idaho. We're still working through that as a group.
And that's fair.
So is that an option we can present to them on Tuesday rather than this document?
That's what we've been doing for the past 18 months, is trying to ferret out what works, what doesn't. That's what we've been doing for a year and a half. How much longer is it going to take? If I ask for feedback at every meeting, and we've had over a dozen meetings and nobody's responding, how is that going to become something? You know?
Jerry, can I ask, process wise? So, you know, I think your approach here where you're saying, you said this at the beginning of this meeting, and I presume at the beginning of the board meeting, that this is a working document. Process wise, if you share this as is on Tuesday, stating that it's working document within the formal structure of the code adoption process, like, are there points where we have to be able to provide updated drafts to the board, you know?
Yes, I can't.
As we within this group, or, you know, outside groups have suggestions for making changes.
We have no authority to say this is how it shall be.
Sure, this is from your and this group's technical expertise is what is being recommended, right?
This is what, you know, based on all of the conversations and meetings, this is what I thought was, and again, it is and it's frustrating for me to even have to say this. You know, because I would love to say we, but it is I, you know, and that puts me in a tough spot. I can defend what I think and what I've put together, but I can't speak for the group. And at the same time, even in all of our years of doing this, and Dave and I started on this. I was the first person brought in when the executive order was signed. I was the first person brought in by the governor through the Division of Building Safety to make this energy code work for the state of Idaho, not for local jurisdictions, but for the state. And so, you know, the board has some faith there in that, but I'm not precluding anybody. What we're trying to say is, you know, this is what we'd like to start with. You know, we can't say that there isn't going to be even outsiders, people that are outside of the collaborative, you know, that for whatever reason didn't choose to participate. You know, we're not going to. I guess that's the intent of the public hearings. You know, as we put something out and say, you know, well, this is a starting point. It doesn't preclude anybody from voicing an opinion or advocating change and or submitting their own rule changes. We're just not in that rulemaking process. We're not in. This is not a formal proposal. It is just kind of what the format would look like.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I think just kind of ensures that, right, this wouldn't be considered, you know, yeah, the final draft or like you said, not considered a formal proposal, so that you know, if we want to come back with additional revisions to this draft, that wouldn't, they wouldn't be like taken off guard and say, oh, I thought you already showed me your draft, like we're done here. So it sounds like not. It sounds like we can come back with some updated drafts.
If I had my choice, I wouldn't even write them.
And then
so
the items we talked about today could just be sections for consideration, for review, or something in that manner. I don't like the idea of not bringing them up because we've discussed them.
As long as it's hooked to where.
Well, and I'm just going to throw this out here as a comment, just coming at this from the legislative side. But, you know, I've sat down with the Water Users Association, several other groups, and we'll look at pieces of legislation, understanding that, you know, we'll be representing groups, but not everyone from our group, with the understanding that we can come back and bring changes. And I think, Jerry, you kind of already alluded to it, but, you know, talking about TSPR and what Jerica said and how most likely that'd be a change that the builders would want. Maybe it would be something appropriate to say that just as we might expect, you know, builders to come back and look for additional changes, but there might be some additional comments. I think if it's phrased in that way, you know,
that's the opening part of my presentation.
But I think that would, I mean, in my mind, right, I'm thinking about it. If I was in your shoes, Jerry, I think that would satisfy the idea that we can still come back, make some additional modifications if we feel we need them, but also signal to those of the other parties that, hey, we realize it's a working document. There's going to be additional back and forth. I guess my hesitation is if you hold off on talking about it. I mean, the way I look at it, you know, the federal state processes move at a much, much slower pace than businesses. And so every single week or month that we postpone discussion makes it much more difficult to get this forward. I think that would be my concern looking ahead.
And I'm not trying to put any urgency or guide or sideboard on it. I'm just saying that what happens at this meeting next Tuesday is going to be the basis of what's being discussed at the public hearings. And so if we if we go in there next Tuesday and say, we don't have the consensus to move forward with this, then we don't have anything to present to the public hearings. We don't have a jumping off point, a starting point.
Gary, it's Charlie Allen. Hey, I agree with some of the comments that you probably need to present something at the board but I would really like to have some comment in there regarding some of our feelings that this is a complicated subject matter, and the energy codes are. There may be additional things that come up that we'll need to address, and there may be some changes an opinion to what we've already proposed, looking at, so that we're not locked in, and that we can let them know it's a working in progress, and we want to be able to hear the other side's concerns more. We really haven't heard anything yet. So approach it that way, that this is just a rough start, a draft, and that there may not be total consensus, but we're all willing to start here.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is these public meetings are the perfect opportunity for anyone on this call to go in person, to share their frustrations, and then that way there is justification to go back and make those changes, right? Is it that fair to
public hearing or to address comments, opinions?
So, maybe that's another way we should look at this too, is the fact that, we utilize that opportunity to not just vocalize our opinions here, but vocalize them at the public hearing so that we can get it on record, and therefore having it as additional backing of that there is input from localities that they would like to see X, Y, and Z put into the next energy code. And again, I'm not saying, by the way, that is not me trying to lead the horse one way or the other. I'm just saying that I'm trying to think through the process, the policy, how we can make things move forward, and also still communicate in ways that are effective for getting the attention of those that'll be shaping the code. Jericho, are you going to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that I'm not advocating for those amendments. I was just surprised not to see them. But also, in section F here, I think I'm generally comfortable with the amendments. In section F here, there are some additional errors. I think just because I'm very particular about things, I would just make sure that you go through that, you get the section numbers right. There's like a spelling error. It should be lighting equipment, not lightning equipment. So just my recommendation is, before you put this before them, make sure that you have all of those references right. And then I did have one question where you reference the mandatory sections of sections R4033 through R4039. I have, guess, two questions there. One question, one statement. My first question would be, did you, not meaning you specifically, Jerry, but in general, did you purposefully not want the additional mandatory requirements that are in R403, because they go all the way through R40313 now? That's my question. And then my statement about this would be, the mandatory designations are no longer in the code. They haven't been since 21. So you, in my opinion, should specify the mandatory sections of R4033 through R4039 as indicated in table R405.2, because that's where the mandatory sections are now. Question, comment?
Thanks, Jerica. I will say that in putting together this document, anything that wasn't highlighted is actually just straight from, it was copied and pasted from the existing. So those typos are part of a statute currently, and probably should be adjusted. And the section numbers are all still based on the 2018. So those would all need to be updated to the 2024.
Okay. And would that be something we would do when we present this next week, or is it something you do later on in the process?
I have to keep coming back to that. This is just what a rough draft would look like. We haven't even entered the first stage of the rulemaking process. For anything to happen in rules, it has to go through the process, which we are trying to get started into. And so this isn't anything that's going beyond next Tuesday's meeting. I'm
not trying to frustrate you, Jerry. I'm just I think we would want to get the sections right if that's what we're saying we're proposing.
I can't go back and change anything that's in an existing document. unless we're advocating that that needs to be changed. But if we're going to go in there and try to correct grammar or something that's already been through the approval process, then that kind of feels like we're outside of our zone a little bit. But, I'm happy to do all of that. I'm just saying with the limited amount of time.
Well, aren't we saying that we as a general group here are agreeing to this document? So wouldn't it be updated to current language, or are we, I guess I'm missing something in the process where we would not update that.
From the majority of the time of this meeting is that we don't have something to present.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking if this is current code language, which it is, if we're recommending it for 2024 adoption, why would we not update the code numbers?
We're trying to do that. We have time to do that. I think, the people on this committee are very into the minutia and all of that. The board isn't. They're just saying, what do you have?
I think what you're saying though, Jerry, is you really just want the input on the yellow, right? Like the yellow of this document is what we're really.
That's the new language, yes.
Right, but I mean, just like, if there any time at the legislature something's coming forward, the real concern needs to be about what's being added to it. I mean, of course, you want to go back and get those other things, but I think what you're saying is you just want to get the feedback on the yellow portions of this document. Am I understanding that right? Like the new insertions, like that's really what you're looking to get feedback on today? Or deletions?
I'm not sure what I want now.
Well, I think just to reiterate again, we have opportunities to update things like this, those details you were calling out, Jerica. Yes, that would need to happen, right? We need to update to because the section numbers did change in 2024. So those kind of details we will have a chance to go through and update when we get further along the process. But I think, Jerry, what I'm hearing from you again is like this is really just the kicking off point where we're getting some chance to get a higher level nod or approval that yes, this kind of a thing looks good to move forward with, and we can evolve it through the formal process.
Yeah, I think that this is the appropriate time for there's some comments made today that goes beyond what I'm attempting to do. And I think this is the time for the collaborative to decide who's going to do this. Because I don't like being painted as an outsider or even considered an outsider. My only motivation for even being involved is what's good for the state and the citizens and energy in general. And there's nothing personal in there. There's nothing that benefits me one way or the other, whether any or all of this gets adopted. And I don't like being referred to as, that I'm working against the inspection or against the collaborative. And I think it's time for, the people that want to, delve into something more into the minutia and all of that. I just think it's probably time for this collaborative to decide who that person is going to be, because we haven't been able, in a year and a half, we haven't been able to look at that. These documents were sent out, by the way, the rules, the statute, all of the charts, everything that we've been reviewing, all the PowerPoints, all of that is out there. Every meeting is recorded. And I just think that, I'm not sure. I'm not feeling the support from the collaborative. You're right. These are difficult. They're technical. I have some experience with it, but evidently I'm not paying attention or open to it. And so let's figure out who that person's going to be.
So Jerry, I wanted to say thank you for all your work. I mean, you've done a lot of great work. So, and I really appreciate everything you've done. I'll just speak for myself. I'll just note that it's probably a misunderstanding on my part. Like I was still thinking that we were holding until we were figuring out direction on whether the board wanted to move forward with the 2024, or they wanted to move forward with amendments, or whether they want to move forward with the 2021 with amendments, or you know, I mean, or something else. Like, and so if I had known that the direction was the 2024, I would have submitted a ton of written suggestions to you. So I've been holding off to wait to figure out, well, what is the path we're going before I actually submitted. But I would be happy to, you know, I mean, regardless how we move forward today, I'd be happy to, you know, I mean, offer up suggestions of different things to be included. But I wasn't understanding, you know, I mean, where we're at, and you're ready for submitting of suggestions yet.
Well, so can we, yeah, I think going back to what Jerry and Dave, you mentioned this as well, like being that we have the opportunity on Tuesday for Jerry to share these initial this initial language and recommendation to the board, knowing that we'll have opportunities to update, and maybe we have a more formal process for accepting like comments and suggestions, like you said, Gregory, and an additional support for you, Jerry, to also like go through all of those specifics, the section numbers, because those all changed again. Like all that stuff may be updated. Like that doesn't need to all fall on you. There's a group here that can help you with that. But again, being that we have this opportunity on Tuesday, like I'm curious, yeah, how folks are feeling after all this conversation. Are we in a space where we feel comfortable with Jerry presenting? I mean, I'll just share that I am, and I think, you know, this is like a good time in the process for the board to hear this and to be able to, you know, get behind 2024 and the energy code, like general kind of support. So maybe kind of a, I don't know if we need to take a formal vote, but just in general, like, are folks supportive of that still?
Charlie Allen here. I agree with what Greg had said. We really didn't have any decision, I guess, on what to look at closely, but I would agree that we present that we would like to adopt the 2024, but it's a work in progress and very rough draft start, but there may be many more amendments that we would like to propose, or and maybe change their opinion on some that we've already made in yellow, and go with it that way. I'm comfortable with that, but just letting the board know that we really are waiting on their direction, how they would like us to proceed. If the 2024 is a viable option, then we'd like to delve into that a little closer and deeper. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, and I'll just speak as well that I think this document can be, yeah, as mentioned, a starting point. If the 2024 IECC unamended is a no-go, which you've heard, then saying we've started looking at some of these amendments, or some of the potential amendments to move forward with the 2024, so we keep the language but remove, barriers to industry. But recognize that we as a board, this is, I mean, it's new for a lot of folks at Doppel, it's been fairly recent that it seems like there's more direction on the 2024. So we as a collaborative are going to continue to work on some of these items, and there may be more. Kind of just reiterating what's already been said, but at least provide this as a starting point, as a very, very rough working draft with more to follow as the collaborative continues to discuss.
Yeah, I think you need to bring it forward if you want an energy code this year with the building code. You have the opportunity to make changes all the way up to that last public hearing. And you got to keep in mind this building code board requires 2 public hearings 60 days apart. So the majority of what's here does get reviewed at the end too, especially for those sections, and we're going to have to remind them of that. Usually it's their attorney, but they've been rotating so many attorneys, I'm not sure they know that. But definitely we got to go through when you change codes and check the sections. But I think focusing on the air sealing is huge. And those added sections that are deleted are going to be those things the builders do not want. And they're going to point to that and say, look what they're making us do. Look what they're making us costing us. So if we want any type of progress or any type of energy code, we got to start somewhere. If there are amendments missing that are going to cost a lot of money, then we probably better consider putting those in there. But it can still be done.
Yeah, I agree. This is Brett. I agree that we need to do that. I agree that we need to just take this document. I think we do need to go into the board, kind of hat in hand approach, and just say, we felt like we wanted to assist this board in moving this to the 2024. We like the 2024, not necessarily as written. It can be or can't be, whatever. But I think we do need to go forward with this because at the end of the day, I think my big thing is I think we need the 2024 with the IBC, the IRC, the IFC. They all complement one another. I think at the end of the day, what needs to happen is if we don't take this forward, to Jason's point, it won't go anywhere. So I think we need to go in though with them, and you could make a disclaimer. There are things that are probably people will want to poke holes in on this. There just is. We recognize there's some things that some other groups that weren't a part of this group are probably going to want to see that are not in here. But if we don't start with this or something, then you're just no one's going to be willing to do what Jerry just did. That's the end bottom line. No one's going to be willing to do this to this point without starting with something. And I think this is just a real rough sketch of what has been discussed in a few communities regarding wanting the 2024. That's where I think we need to go.
And there's one thing that keeps coming to my mind was when the legislature pulled out the energy code into a separate statute section. They put the 2018 in statute, and I'm still wondering if it can be changed in rule because they kind of made their intent that you would have to come back to the legislature to change the code year. But we've had a history in the past where they put code years in the statute, but we've been okay in the past to override it in rule. So I'm just not sure where that lands in their latest statute.
Yeah, I talked to Doppel about that, and we would want the way that it should have been worded is, and how it was previously was it would give a date and then it would say or subsequent additions.
Yeah.
And we just need to add that in there because there's just things that are going to have to be addressed in the future. We can't lock onto a code like that.
So that needs to be changed in statute then to add that language.
Yes, and they're aware of that. I've already put that.
Okay, because I believe it was the intent of certain legislatures to not have that language.
I understand, but it does interfere.
I don't know. I got mixed emotions about this. I mean, I know having all the code cycles the same is huge, but I don't like the idea of going forward with something that's not entirely correct as a proposal or a draft. and I understand times is an option. And I understand that people don't want to do things, but if I guess my fear is if it gets presented and if things don't change, and then that's going to be very disheartening. And then the pushback from the builders could be pretty bad with the legislature. And I mean, on a different subject, it's just like out in the counties, July 1, if you buy a lot in a subdivision that doesn't have that, and you put a well in, you can no longer get 13,000 gallons of water and irrigate a half inch or a half acre of land. You can only have potable water for your residents. That went through the legislation last year. That wasn't the intention of the legislation from the legislature that presented it, but that was the outcome. And that's going to affect a lot of people, and a lot of people are scrambling and are really upset. That's my fear with documents like this. When we try to push to make a deadline when it's not ready and we have incomplete information just because it was in a former adopted code cycle doesn't make it right. If we're going after the 24, I think that our code section should be correct. I think our language should be correct. And it's nothing personal against Jerry. He's done a great job. I know I don't have the time to do it. So Jerry, thank you for your hard work. It just needs, I just think it just needs a little bit more tweaking. I say put it off for another month. Let's try to get the code sections right, the grammar right.
We don't
have a little more discussion and get it right. Because the consequences with the builders, if we get it wrong and it doesn't get amended or changed, you're going to kiss an energy code goodbye in Idaho.
Okay.
I guaranteed.
So I'm going to say one more time. This is a rough draft. It's a working document. There's nothing in here that prevents anything from being discussed, added, removed.
Okay. And as long as that can happen, then and just be very, very upfront with that with the building code board, then I'm okay with the presentation. But I still feel there needs to be a lot of changes, and I think that's the stuff that I'm hearing from the group.
Okay, can I say something, Richard? I sincerely mean this. I was the person that wrote all of the rules and the statute after the executive order was put in place in 2010. Okay. I'm very familiar with the code. Almost everything that's written in the rules is either something myself or Jason Blaze put in there. And so the board knows that. Doppel knows that, right? They have faith that we're not going to mislead them or do anything that's going to get them or us in trouble. And so I'm trying to say again, we're just trying to get to that first step. And they said, we can't say, well, we're in general support of the 2024. They said, well, that's not good enough. We know there's issues out there. And so I'm not afraid to add whatever to this. I'm just saying that I've been asking for it for a while. And, if there are stuff that I can put in there today and we can get it in there before the board meeting on Tuesday, then that needs to happen. And
all I know for myself is, besides what we see on your PowerPoints, I've never have seen a document submitted, to, at least for me, on the proposes and the changes and all that stuff. But
I'm saying that the document is what triggers the feedback, right? Everybody goes along with the presentations and stuff until somebody actually prints something, and then that's where we start drawing lines. And it's like, we don't need to draw lines, we just need to sort it out. But without a document to start with, then we don't have something that we can look at and sit there and examine. This is why I didn't put this out to everybody today ahead of the meeting or last week when we were done with it.
But how are we supposed to have time to review it and have educated remarks on your stuff to help make what your hard work make it better? Because I know for myself, everything that I do, I have 4 or 5 people to review it because,
Okay.
the more eyes on it, the better it gets.
Okay.
But that's me personally. I'm not a wordsmith. I didn't write anything in for the legislature and everything else. But that's all I'm trying to say. What
I'm
you've
not,
done, thank you. I
yeah,
just think it just needs some tweaking.
I'm not trying to disagree with you. I'm just saying that I was asked to put together a document that they could have somebody look at, not review, just something. They have a 15-minute meeting with the governor's office, and they're discussing the commercial building code, the residential building code, and the energy code. And they're trying to say, can we move forward with negotiated rulemaking? And they're saying, what do you want? Who's doing what? It's not it's untypical. It's not a,
Can
these
I
are
ask
normal.
another question then? Why isn't the collaboration trusted with your
Richard,
document?
wait, Richard, before you start, if you want to ask one more question, that's great. And I'm not trying to cut you off to be rude to anybody, but we do need to be sensitive to the fact that 3 p.m. is our cutoff. So we do have to move forward eventually. So please go ahead and ask your question, Richard.
Just want to know why the collaboration isn't trusted with your document for a review. I mean,
If it was a formal rule change, I would have put this out as far in advance as possible. It is a working document. That's all it is. It's something to say, can we even go in this direction?
well, due to time constraints, I'm going to be quiet. Thank you.
Would it help like if we put, like a watermark draft on this, at least for the presentation purposes, so that, there's no way that people could take this and just assume it's final.
That's why it wasn't put out for circulation tests. That was the reason why. So it's not going to be put out to the general public. This is just for Doppel to have something that they can refer to in that conversation.
Right, yeah. But I mean, can we like make it more obvious that it's a draft just to help
Yeah,
some
I've
of those
already
concerns?
I've already given it to them, but yeah, I can,
Yeah. Okay, well, I heard, definitely some mixed opinions, but overall support for presenting on Tuesday. Does everyone, most people feel comfortable with that? I appreciate everyone sharing their opinions and thoughts.
Yes.
Yes, I think so. I would maybe say one more thing too, and just kind of going along with what has been said. Basically, I think what needs to happen is I think we never want to miss an opportunity to give ourselves a slight pat on the back. And what I mean by that is we can call it basically a pat on the back to, in this case, Jerry, you've done a lot of work on it, and everybody on the call, everybody could get a little pat on the back. And what I mean by that is, when you go before the board, if you say that this is a very rough draft, our intention is to look at the 2024 code, not as written, but with modifications. Here is a beginning draft to start with, because let's face it, there's not a lot of people in the industry on either side of this issue that are going to take the time and do what Jerry just did. There's just not. It's the reality we live in today. It's a lot of time spent right here. I agree there are things that need to be addressed. I know that there is a lot of things that need to be finalized and all of that other stuff. And I think that there needs to be something saying, hey, some of this stuff is already in place, and we realize there are some errors in here. But this is going to be something that could start a larger meeting that has everyone in the entire state that has any kind of a stakeholder position in this, that they could take this with as a complete collaborative group to move forward. Because isn't that the intent of this meeting, is to start something to get the ball rolling to move towards a 2024 code? Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't start here, it most likely won't start anywhere else in any other community. So this is going to be a very rough draft, a very good place to start, but it has errors in it. We know that it has things that we need to do. I just feel like if it doesn't start here, we may as well just say it's done, because it's not going to go anywhere else. No one else is going to push this.
Well, Tess, David, and Jerry, I mean, I think based off the comments, we sound like we go ahead and move forward. We've received the comments. Thank you to everyone for the comments. We'll continue moving forward. Brett, thank you for your comments and kind of summarizing very well, just kind of, I think, where we're at, where we're going, how we can continue to make things better. Jerica, I'm happy to continue to communicate with you if you want to pass along anything else to me, or it sounds like you're already talking to Damon too, and Damon, of course, is a great point of contact on that. So we can continue to move on that now. And just trying to be sensitive to the fact that I know that everyone has other meetings they have for the rest of the day. Is there anything else that we wanted to discuss on this, or any other notes?
Can you please send out this document so then we can start taking a look at proposing amendments? I mean, we won't get it in time for this board meeting, but we could get it for the next one.
Let me talk about that with Greg, and I'll get back to you. I'll email you tomorrow.
I guess we can always just email IDOPL and do a public records request and get it that way then.
Okay, well, I think
I'll just jump in. Richard, it's a jab. We'll get the documents out. We'll discuss it. There's obviously some reason behind it, but I mean, pouring gas on the fire, with all due respect, it's not
public record after the meeting. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's there before the meeting in the agenda.
Yep. So anyway.
Well, I think I'll just go ahead and make the call that I think we've reached the most productivity we'll get out of this meeting today. I will follow up with notes. Please look at your emails for those. Thank you everybody for your input, taking the time. I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on. But I will follow up with notes. We'll figure out when we'll move forward as far as a future code collaborative meeting. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk again soon. Stop.
Thank you.
Thank you.